Someday, no one will have to face the anguish they have undergone.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at the most specific pieces of legislation crafted to address unique crimes, each named after the victims they were meant to honor.
But maybe for sure she would answer me, but there was never no answer.
The Coogan Act, named after Jackie Coogan. Also known as the California Child Actors Bill, the Coogan Act was enacted in 1939 to protect young performers.
So when you turn 18, the child actor can come up here and get the money that they are entitled to. This helps protect them.
The bill requires that 15% of a child actor's earnings be placed in a trust fund called a Coogan account. This was done to prevent the youngsters from suffering the same fate as Jackie Coogan, whom the bill is named after. Widely regarded as one of the first child stars in Hollywood, Coogan made millions in his early career, only to discover in adulthood that his mother and stepfather had squandered nearly everything.
Next thing you know, all the money's gone. And
although he took them to court, he only recovered a small fraction. Since it was originally passed, the Coogan Act has been revised to include child social media influencers.
This basically just protects and compensates them so that when they turn 18, they can receive portions of the money and the ability to be able to say, you know what, I want to take my image off of the internet and, you know, kind of be forgotten.
Kendras Law, named after Kendra Webdale. In 1999, a young writer named Kendra Webdale met a tragic demise after being pushed in front of an oncoming train at a Manhattan subway station. Her attacker, Andrew Goldstein, was previously diagnosed with schizophrenia, but was off his medication and had recently been denied treatment.
Goldstein was ultimately sentenced to 23 years in prison with time off for good behavior.
While Webdale's family sought justice for her death, they also aimed to prevent similar situations by tackling the root cause. Working with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, they supported the passage of Kendras Law in New York. This law allows courts to mandate assisted outpatient treatment for individuals with mental illnesses.
The court approves a treatment program for the patient. And then you're assigned a case manager or a team to manage your case.
Although non-compliance isn't a criminal offense, Kendras Law has been shown to reduce a patient's risk of violence, self-harm, and hospitalization.
In death, she inspired us to work for a law that will improve and perhaps save the lives of others.
Carrie's Law, named after Carrie Hunt Dunn. On December 1, 2013, Carrie Hunt Dunn took her 3 daughters to visit her estranged husband Brad at a motel. Dunn was in the process of ending their 10-year marriage and had already begun a new relationship. While in the motel room, Brad stabbed her multiple times as their children listened in horror. The eldest daughter tried to call 911 but couldn't, as she was unaware that the motel phone required her to first dial 9 to reach an outside line.
Dunn's father, Hank Hunt, knows his granddaughter did exactly what she was taught, what we're all taught.
If you ever need help, dial 911, and that's what she did, and we let her down.
This tragedy led legislators to propose Carrie's Law, which requires businesses with multi-line telephone systems to allow direct dialing to 911.
The American Hotel and Lodging Association conducted a survey and found 45% of franchised hotels did not require an access code for 911. Among smaller, independent hotels, that number is even lower, just 32%.
It was first enacted in the state of Texas before becoming federal law in 2018. The
law requires direct 911 dialing from multi-line telephone systems like the ones in hotels and offices where you would normally have to dial another number first to get an outside line.
The Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, named after James Brady. Ronald Reagan survived the 1981 attempt on his life without any long-term injuries, but others were not as fortunate.
I'd like to say a few words directly to all of you and to those who are watching and listening tonight, because this is the only way I know to express to all of you on behalf of Nancy and myself our appreciation for your messages, your flowers, and most of all, your prayers.
His press secretary, James Brady, was struck by a bullet that left him with partial paralysis and using a wheelchair. Following the incident, Brady became a gun control advocate, pushing for the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, which was named after him.
More guns means more violence. More violence means more carnage. More people in one of these things than walking around with a stick.
Signed into law by Bill Clinton in 1994, the act introduced a 5-day waiting period on handgun purchases to allow for background checks. It also prohibited the sale of firearms to convicted felons and individuals with mental illnesses.
Today,
We know that someone was listening. After nearly 7 years, the Brady Bill is about to become the Brady Law.
After the National Instant Criminal Background Check System was implemented in 1998, the act was amended to eliminate the waiting period. Caylee's Law, named after Caylee Anthony. The death of Caylee Anthony resulted in one of the most infamous criminal trials in modern history.
The trial of Casey Anthony produced tears, shock, and anger. How about our new law?
Her mother, Casey Anthony, was charged with first-degree murder after it was revealed that she had failed to report her daughter's disappearance for 31 days. Although Casey was ultimately acquitted, the trial prompted several U.S. states to propose bills making it a felony for parents or guardians to fail to report a child's disappearance.
Most parents don't need to hear this message, but it's clear that some do, and that is when a child's life is in danger, they're missing, let's get on it, let's report it, so there's that.
These bills, known as Caylee's Law, have been enacted in around 10 states, including Alabama, Illinois, New Jersey, and Florida, where the Anthonys resided. Critics, however, argue that the laws may harm innocent parents and would do little to deter those who actually murder their children.
Well, what actually prompted it, Nancy, was the fact that she's only been convicted of lying to the police.
The Ryan White Care Act, named after Ryan White. Back in the early 1980s, HIV was largely misunderstood and widely believed to only affect the gay community. That perception shifted dramatically because of Ryan White.
Knowledge about the disease then was low, while fear was high.
A teenager with a blood disorder, White contracted HIV in 1984 from a contaminated blood transfusion. His diagnosis led to him being banned from school over fears he could infect others. He and his family also faced widespread discrimination in their Indiana town.
I wanted to go to school and be like everybody else. Because, it's so fun sitting at home all day.
Despite this, White became a national advocate for HIV awareness.
I said, Ryan, how do you do it? How do you keep from getting so nervous? He said, Mom, let me give you some advice. He said, just don't try to use those big fancy words. And he said, you'll be okay.
After his death from AIDS-related pneumonia in 1990, Congress passed the Ryan White Comprehensive AIDS Resources Emergency or CARE Act. This act provides substantial funding for HIV/AIDS programs and is estimated to have saved over 50,000 lives.
We need to be and share our stories and be able to communicate with people the sadness and the sorrow, but also the joy that maybe nobody has to live with this again.
The Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act, named after Adam Walsh. The popular crime TV show America's Most Wanted first premiered in 1988, hosted by anti-crime activist John Walsh. Walsh's involvement in the fight against crime was the result of a deeply personal tragedy.
We haven't really concerned ourselves with vengeance. I think that is something that eats you up.
His son Adam was abducted from a Florida mall in 1981 and remained missing until his remains were found 2 weeks later. Driven by this loss, Walsh and his wife Reve dedicated themselves to preventing other families from suffering a similar fate.
It's very rewarding to see, your accomplishments finally come to light, but it'll never erase the loss that we've experienced.
Their efforts led to the passage of the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act in 2006. This law created a nationalized sex offender registry, increased funding for tracking offenders, and imposed harsher penalties for crimes against children.
And ultimately that led to what we have today, where we receive these notifications on our phones, and we receive more information on street signs and through the lottery.
Jessica's Law, named after Jessica Lunsford. First passed in Florida in 2005, Jessica's Law has since been introduced in over 40 states, although it was never implemented at the federal level.
So it meant a lot for her father and for the townspeople to have the governor come here and sign the bill that bears her name.
Its name comes from Jessica Lunsford, a Florida girl who was abducted from her home, sexually assaulted and murdered by John Couey, a convicted sex offender. Couey was ultimately sentenced to death, though he died of natural causes while on death row.
What was the first thing that crossed your mind when they told you he passed away?
That I wish I would have been there so I could have watched him take his last breath.
The case sparked immense public outrage and led officials in Florida to introduce Jessica's Law, which imposes stricter penalties for certain sexual crimes committed against young children.
Now, 20 years later, this Tree of Life plaque hangs in the lobby of the Citrus County Sheriff's Office in honor of Jessica.
The law was quickly signed by then-Governor Jeb Bush and mandates lifelong electronic monitoring for offenders who violate it. Megan's Law, named after Megan Kanka. On July 29, 1994, Megan Kanka, a girl from New Jersey, was lured into the home of her neighbor Jesse Temendekwas. where he sexually assaulted and murdered her.
Where the house once stood, a park was built in Megan Kanka's memory.
Temendekwas had 2 prior convictions for similar crimes, although in those cases the victims survived. 1 month after Kanka's murder, Paul Kramer, a New Jersey assemblyman, sponsored Megan's Law, mandating law enforcement officials to notify local residents of registered sex offenders in their communities.
Anybody who's convicted, their name, their picture, their address, and other items tying them to their identity is available for the public.
This law expanded on the Wetterling Act, named after Jacob Wetterling, which required sex offenders to register with local police. In 1996, President Bill Clinton signed a federal version of Megan's Law, allowing state officials to decide what information to make public.
The law that bears the name of one child is now for every child, for every parent and every family.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are some honorable mentions. The Lindbergh Law. The Lindbergh case made interstate transport of kidnapping victims a federal crime.
Hauptmann is found guilty and sentenced to death.
Lauren's Law. Lauren Lehman's death led to mandatory CPR and AED training for students and faculty.
I did lose my daughter, Lauren, in 2008, but the thing is, I got an opportunity to get a new heart and a new lease on life.
The Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. The 1955 lynching of Emmett Till prompted Congress to classify it as a federal hate crime.
The law is not just about the past, it's about the present.
The Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act made attacks based on sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability federal hate crimes.
We can be proud that the bell rings even louder now, and each day grows louder still.
Caden's Law. Revised Pennsylvania custody laws after Caden Mancuso's murder by her own father.
Not one person in his family could go in front of a judge and swear on the Bible and say, he's a great father.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Amber Alert, named after Amber Renee Hagerman. Today, Amber Alerts are quite common. They're used to alert the public whenever a child is reported missing.
You see it pop up on your phone. You hear the noise.
This system might never have existed if not for Amber Renee Hagerman. In 1996, while riding her bike in Arlington, Texas, Hagerman was abducted and later murdered. An eyewitness called 911, but despite a swift police response, Hagerman's body was found 4 days later in a nearby creek. The case remains unsolved.
Police worked tirelessly, but over time, no one was caught.
Her tragic death led to the creation of the Amber Alert system, which was named in her honor and designed to maximize public awareness through radio, TV, text messages, and digital platforms. The goal is to increase the chances of finding missing children within the critical early hours after abduction.
I would never ever want another mother to have to go through what I had gone through. Or another child be taken away.
What other infamous crime cases have inspired laws around the world? Let us know in the comments below.
We said we need to move, and we need to move quickly.
Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.